Parshat Ekev contains within it many different psukim that are fascinating and many that we're very familiar with them. One of them is the parsha, the entire portion that we say in Kriyat Shema, in the Shema prayer every single day. And at the conclusion of this particular portion, there is the famous verse, Lema'an yirbu yemechem v'imei b'nechem ala adama Asher nishba Adonai la'avotechem latet lehem kimei hashamayim al haaretz. Literally translated as, in order to prolong your days and the days of your children upon the land that Hashem has sworn to your forefathers to give them, like the days of heaven over the earth. And the question is, God promises a blessing, that He'll give us the land. He'll give it and perpetuate it for generations, not just for ours, but for future. But just like the days of the heaven upon the earth, what is that supposed to mean? How are we supposed to wrap our hands around that? How are we supposed to make sense? What does it mean, like the days of the heaven upon the earth? Are they not two separate realms? How do we make sense of this? And Rav Shamshon Raphael Hirsch says that this entire portion is coming to teach us the relationship that can exist between the influence that we have down below on what happens up above. In other words, God says to us, if you follow the Torah, the mitzvot, and you follow the various stipulations that exist within the Torah, then yes, you have the ability to convince, if you may, to sway the decisions of heavens upon what's going to happen in the earth. After all, if you harvest crops in the earth below, that has everything to do in terms of your persistent and consistent allegiance to what God expects from you. If indeed you demonstrate that allegiance, then you will have good crops. And so in a sense, we're influencing through our spirituality, our spiritual subservience, what's going to happen in the world below. Kimei hashamayim al haaretz. As events transpire in the earth below, we realize that there is a direct affiliation and correlation between what happens in the heavens and how we can sway, if you may, or persuade God based on our behaviors below. And that is the simple understanding, so much so that it can have an effect even that carries on to future generations. If we're able to teach and nurture and guide the generations as such to subscribe to God's directions, to God's expectations, then certainly it can have impact on future generations. From a personal perspective, I'd like to share with you what it means, Kimei hashamayim al haaretz, because as someone who lost their child, who lost their Gila, I find myself trapped consistently between the world below and the world above. On the one hand, I find myself grounded in this world because I have children and grandchildren who need their father, who need their grandfather, I'd like to think that they do, and who would like to have a rapport and relationship with him. I'd like to think that they do. And so I am very much attached to this earth. On the other hand, I'm so attached to Shamayim, to the heavens above, because of the loss, because of my child's spirit who now resides in a completely different realm that I have no comprehension or understanding of. And so I long to somehow enjoin the spirit of Shamayim, of the heavens above, to the earth below. And I want to share with you the following story that happened to me last week. I was in South Africa on a lecture tour, and a young man who was very fond of Gila, a year older than Gila, but very good friends with her, he had been sick at one point and he needed some help, and I actually went to the hospital to try and help him out. This is about a year and a half ago. And I got a text from him while I was in South Africa, out of nowhere. He says, "Hi, how you doing? I just wanted to check in and tell you that I still often visit Gila's grave. I miss her terribly." And I wrote back to him, "I miss her too, terribly." And he said, "Why don't we get together when you come back and we could talk about God, religiosity, and various issues that come up as such." And I said, "That would be fantastic. I sincerely hope that I'll remember to connect with you when I return." I went to Gila's kever this past Thursday, and on the way to walking to her kever, to walking to her burial place, I started to think to myself, and I said, don't forget to get in touch with this young man. You should try and remember. You promised you would. And I get to the kever, to the burial place of Gila where she lies, and I obviously am overcome with emotions and sadness and pain, and I started to cry. And as I walk away from the kever, I said, "Gila, just send me a sign that you're here with us, that you hear me, that you hear my prayers to help our pain and to help the pain of others, particularly a very close friend of mine who's going through pain and suffering and the sickness, the ailment that she has. And I asked Gila to help out. I said, send me a sign. And as I walked away from the grave, an old man who looks after the cemetery, this is 12 o'clock in the afternoon, sweltering with heat in the mid-August day, he comes over to me and he sees that I'm crying and he says, can I help you? Can I get you a cup of cold water to make you feel better? And I said, no, it's quite all right. I'm going to my car. But I turned to Gili and I said, Gili, thank you for sending me this sign. Little did I know that as I pulled my car out of the cemetery, the very first bus stop that I get to, standing at that bus stop, is this young man who contacted me while I was in South Africa and who asked me to remember to be in touch with him upon my return. He is standing at the bus stop right outside the cemetery. And I went over to him and I said to him, I want you to know that I had just been involved. I just thought about you as I was walking to Gila's kever, and I said, I must remember to get in touch with you. And here you are. You're right in front of me. I said, it's absolutely incredible. I was so overtaken that as I pulled into the road where I live, I saw a woman who I know, whose daughter also was going through various struggles, and who I try and assist. And this daughter actually knew Gila, and she went to the same school as Gila. And I pulled over and I told her, I must tell you this story. And I said, do me a favor, share it with your daughter. I'm sure she'll appreciate it. Well, when I got home, I got the following text from this mother. And she writes, I have to share with you this. After I just saw you, it hit me. Running into you is part of Gila's intervention. You asked me about my daughter, and I just happened to be on the phone with her at that very moment, having a deep conversation, which doesn't happen very often. We were talking about how important it is to take advantage of the time we have with our loved ones, because you never know how much time anyone has. Specifically in relation to my parents, her grandparents, who she hasn't had contact with in a few years, and my mom will be turning 80 soon. Then you pulled over and shared your story with me and insisted that I share it with my daughter. As I called to share it with her, it all came together, and I realized we were part of it. I am in tears. I am certain that Gila was sending a message to my daughter through you. Just incredible. May Hashem continue to send you comfort, and may Gila's legacy continue living through all of us. Kimei hashamayim al haaretz. I couldn't agree more. This is the Parsha's way. It is the Jewish way. And it always, my dear Gila, will remain the Gila way. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you once again for joining us. Please remember to consider subscribing to the page below and send me your comments. I will get back to you. Have a great day.